Good evening, everybody. This is Thursday PD with MakerSpaces and Design Thinking. We have some experts and a lot of newbies here. So we're here representing the public who needs to know, and some of the folks who can help us know. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. Sethi, how about you?
I just said I muted myself. Yeah, okay. So my name is Sethi. I'm based in Bangkok, and my main position this year is lead of the Makerspace and our Digital Innovation Center. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to getting some new ideas and hearing from all of you what
Yeah.
you think about Makerspaces and design thinking.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Gary?
I'm Gary Garcia from the Philippines. I am a part-time professor at Bulacan State University. At the same time, I am a part-time teacher for senior high school at Holy Spirit Academy here in Malolos. I am happy to be here and to hear what our expert will say about Makerspace because I'm helping a school about doing something new for their school.
Cool.
Good evening.
Ralph, how about you?
Yeah, hello. Hello, Neal. I'm Ralph out of Bangkok, and I work for British Columbian International School, Bangkok. And I'm a tech coordinator there, teach STEAM and science, and as many toys as I have never had before this year. Many Arduinos, many Raspberry Pis, and yeah, Makerspace is what we still have to tackle it. I'm forward to that. This is ThursdayPD. Every Thursday we talk to you, full of joy, and we always have a drink with us. I have for you a bit of positivity. Thank you very much.
Nice, nice. And Neal, a new face in our group. So what's up?
Hi, yeah, I'm Neal. I'm in Surabaya in Indonesia. So I'm head of design here, MYP coordinator. And with the help of my old friend, this way, this one, and we'll be setting up Makerspace in the school that we're at, hopefully to bring in the community. So like refurbishing the whole of design to bring more people in. So fingers crossed.
So you're in the process of moving in that direction.
Yes,
right?
I tend to end up going to schools that have to set up design spaces.
Okay, cool. Adriana, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm Adriana. I'm currently in Kuala Lumpur, where I'm masquerading as a technology coach. But next year I will be in this school year, I'll be in Surabaya, pretending to be a librarian.
Nice. That's cool. All right. So yeah, I am Eric, and I am in South Korea, and I am teacher now with a lot of ed tech in my future, and so it really pays to learn as much as I can in a place like that. So I've been hearing a lot about makerspaces, and only this evening because I volunteered to be a host because I know so little about the topic. So I thought, well, I can represent the curiosity of the masses. And so I only looked up design thinking. I mean, you'd think that the term, is pretty self-explanatory, but it is a very specific thing as I'm learning. And it seems pretty interesting. And makerspaces, well, I mean, yes, makerspace is a space where things are made. To hear folks talk around here, it's almost like makerspaces means robots. So I want to learn what it is and what it isn't. So I guess if anybody has a clear definition, I guess maybe we could start with what is a makerspace? If anybody knows, or I'll take guesses too.
I'm happy to say, I mean, to me, if I'm okay speaking,
yeah, sure.
To me, a makerspace is a place where any type of failure is celebrated. So I don't lock it down to just robotics or just this or just that. For me, it's all about the process and the journey of what your students do. So a makerspace, yes, it can be a separate room, it can be a space by itself, but it can also be a corner in a classroom. It can also be a table somewhere out in between two classrooms. Maybe there's a shared area where you put a table and you have some resources. What's key to me for makerspace is, first of all, creativity is celebrated, and any type of failure is considered a success because you've learned that that's not the way to do it. And that is key to a makerspace. So as long as you put those things forward and you say, okay, look, there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you do, it's okay. If it fails, brilliant. What did we learn from this and how can we improve it? So it's definitely, to some teachers, that's a very new concept, because I mean, they all know about, Carol Dweck and growth mindset and all these things, but actually, do they practice it? Probably not, because they look at their lessons as a 50-minute block, and then that's the end of my lesson. Whereas a makerspace it might take them 10 minutes. It could also take them a couple of weeks to figure something out.
Yeah.
And so you're obviously constantly planning, but it is a bit tricky to explain that in sort of long-term plans or midterm plans. That's what it is for me.
Inclusion of failure. I would have loved to have that in my school time. I would have been a real success then. So I love that you say that. For me, makerspace is not necessarily in a classroom. Even better if it's not a dedicated classroom where maybe some students don't feel free to walk in. It should be accessible for any class, for any teacher. And makerspace needs, I would say, you need to get your hands dirty, not literally, but in a way that you can use different materials, use tools, modify those materials, and usually, if the age allows it, there should be a soldering iron around.
Neal, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, to add to the sort of like comments that have gone on, it's good for a collaboration space. It shouldn't just be between like-minded people, age-related people. We're looking at young children and adults getting together, because since I've been in education, I find young children, their imaginations are just amazing. And the information you can get off them in a space where they can just be.
Yeah.
And they don't have the restraints of a classroom and a teacher saying, sit down, don't move, do this. If they can move around, you can get the best work out of a student. You really can. And that's why I like the fact that you said not just have a dedicated classroom. It can be anywhere. And that's really nice. Being able to move the space anywhere is a great idea.
Yeah. So what, is there a distinct difference between a makerspace and your average art room? What do you think?
Well, with an art room, you're going to get on my wrong side here. Art is a very, let's say, painting, bit of clay work, things like that. And I know the art followers out there are going to dive on this and give me some grief. But coming from an engineering design related background, it's practical. It's getting in there. And like you said earlier, somebody said, getting your hands dirty, trying it, failure, it's so important. Yeah. And I find if you're doing things like art, you tend not to try and make those failures. But if you're working in a makerspace or a practical space, failure is great because you learn from it.
Oh, interesting.
I agree with that. I mean, I work very closely with our art teacher at school. And obviously, there's a lot of communication about the DT aspect of that subject. But I think that the key difference is, just that. With a makerspace, it's a lot more about the engineering side of things, about looking at a problem and getting to that core problem and then trying to design a solution for it. Whereas in the art room, you've got, different techniques, different artists that you're looking at. You're looking at different styles. Maybe you're looking at different materials and how they connect together and whereas we look at materials and we say, okay, this is a very stretchy material. What can I do with that? Whereas an art teacher looks at a material, sees the stretchy material, says, okay, when I stretch it out, it has a slightly different color, so I can use it in this way. So the way you look at materials and the way you look at things is very different. I see cardboard and I see one of my greatest resources. An art teacher sees cardboard and they start thinking, I can cut this up, I can make reliefs, I can maybe use it as a canvas, I can again, you look at things differently. But I think that collaboration has been incredibly powerful, because we've had students, they'll come to them, because we do have a dedicated space, as well as we bring Makerspace into every classroom, because we don't want to limit it to just an hour a week. 1 hour a week, they come into my Makerspace and they spend an hour with me, and we really dive into certain, for example, if we got a unit on electronics, well, they'll do the soldering, and we're working with Arduinos and so on. But that Makerspace is also in their classroom, so if they want to continue working on that, they can do that. However, because I only have them for an hour, we work with them in blocks of time. So I've got them for 6-7 weeks, and then the art teacher has them for 6-7 weeks. And then I've got them for 6-7 weeks, and then the art teacher has them for 6-7 weeks. And we split the classes in half, and then we swap it around, and we mix it all up. And so they get exposed to both sides of it, because what you really want is, you want them to design something that is purposeful, that works, that's been trialed and tested over and over and over and over. And once it works, once your prototype is done, make it look good.
Okay.
And then go there.
Well, the best scenario is something which could be used in everyday usage by the student body, or things which last a bit.
I think the best design, even if it's broken after a day, the best design is a design that solves a problem and is accessible. I've had students that have worked on something for 4 or 5 weeks, and after 5 weeks they test it for the final time. Everything works, they're happy about it, they share it with everyone else. 2 days later it's broken.
Okay.
But that was the prototype.
There we are with the innovation
what can we
cycle.
change about that?
Exactly.
Well, the prototype was made out of this material. Well, what did we do wrong? Like, I could have told them that 4 weeks ago, but then they would not have learned anything.
Okay.
So they went through the process, and then, they were a bit upset about that, but I was like, yeah, great, you did amazing work. Now repeat everything you've just done, but change your materials.
Yeah. So they understand it on a deeper level through experience.
Yeah. And then now in term 2, before we started our new project, the first thing they did was they got their problem, they got their challenge. The first thing they did was, okay, let's test 7 different materials and choose the one we're going to use.
Nice.
I was like, there you go.
So back to the art comparison, then it seems like, well, one crucial point I feel like you were saying was that Makerspaces, the things that come out of Makerspaces are solutions to problems. Is that, would you say that that's often true? Okay. Whereas art is can be art for its own sake, and you can apply art to the product, but the process, Makerspaces are about solving problems. So it's not just for entertainment. True?
Well, I think it's also about interest as well.
Yeah.
If you've got somebody that's interested in something, and normally in schools that don't use Makerspaces, somebody says, oh, I really want to make, oh, we haven't got time, you've got to do this. And it just destroys creativity and entrepreneurship and everything straight away. But if you've got a space they know they can use, lunchtimes, after school, even weekends, then you're not stifling that creativity. You're actually bringing it out, because they'll work on what they're really interested in. And when they hear Makerspace, they're like, wow, I can go and use that space at any time and no one's going to moan at me.
That's pretty cool.
I agree with that. I mean, I don't think I've ever had to convince a single student to come to my session or my space. I've had many students ask if they could stay a bit longer and if they could come in over lunchtime and after school and stay an extra hour. And they didn't sign up for the club, but they want to come and join the club. And then at 3:30, the club is over. And guess what? They don't want to go. They want to stay for an extra hour. And that's because they're allowed to express themselves. They're allowed to pursue those interests. For example, one of my walls in the makerspace is painted bright green.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess why? Because some students want to explore video editing and creativity that way. Well, by all means, use it. It's there. If you ever need it, we've got microphones, we've got tripods, we've got lights, professional light, everything. It's there. Just knock on the door and say, "Can I please use your green screen?" Absolutely. Come on in. What's your plan? What have you got planned? Because you do need to come in with a plan. I've had many students knock on the door and say, "Can I get some cardboard?" And if I ask them, "Okay, well, what dimensions are you after?" Oh, just a big piece. Come back when you know exactly what size you'd like.
Okay.
Once you give me a size, and I will let you pick that cardboard out of our pile.
Yeah.
Don't just say you want a box. I need to know why and the size.
With a makerspace, you're creating skills for the future as well. Because at the minute, we've got a lot of digital technology. Students live online. But if they've got a makerspace, they can learn skills. Changing a plug is a skill.
Yeah.
But 90% of young people haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very good. I'm so happy that you say that, Neal.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Go ahead, Ralph. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Ralph. Oh, can't hear you.
So nowadays, everybody has a smart TV, yeah? When the smart TVs came out, they were up to in dollars, up to $200 more expensive just because of the apps they could run and the connection to Wi-Fi and YouTube. And had you known what a Raspberry Pi is, and you buy it for $30 and make a smart TV with a Raspberry Pi yourself. And what you learn as a byproduct is not only that you can save money, but you learn a process of enabling yourself, and that is so much easier if you do it in a community, because if you run into problems, you can ask your friends or even the teacher if he shall know more, which is not always the case, which is okay as well. So the smart TV is a good example. I'm sad that I didn't bring it with me now today, but maybe you know Zonoff, the little switches you can connect with an app through your smart device, like Alexa or something. Anyhow, the Sonoff is about $10, and you need an app which is super bloaty out of China. Sorry, and it's annoying to use that app. But if you use a Raspberry Pi or even Arduino Nano for it, you don't need an app. You just need a website which connects or which runs on the Raspberry Pi, and the switches can be switched with far more, let me think for the word, consciousness, digital awareness or consciousness. Sorry, that was long now.
No, it's fine. Yeah. I was wondering, because you're talking about all the engagement power of makerspaces. Have you ever had other teachers get annoyed because the students are focused on your stuff and not their stuff?
Sorry, go ahead, Neal.
No, I was just saying, me personally, yes. It does drive other teachers quite mad when they're late for the other classes because they just had to finish cutting something which couldn't wait a week.
I hear you. Yeah.
I was going to say the exact same thing. The only time I've had teachers upset is because they didn't leave the room on time because they were in the middle of something. That just could not be stopped.
Yeah,
it was just, and even though we start clearing things and tidying away 10 minutes before the end of the lesson, there's always something that's still, that needs a bit of extra attention.
Sure. Well, that's pretty cool.
But on the other hand, I've been incredibly fortunate being at a school that has this very child-centered approach to education. So none of our classrooms, and this goes from all the way from early years up to year 9, because we only go up to year 9, none of our classrooms have the expectation of you have to sit at a desk. We have when new teachers join the team and we see that they are those kind of teachers, and sort of, teach the boring, dull lessons, guaranteed they won't last, because that's not the school we are. Every school has sofas and beanbags, and they're literally everywhere around the school. So when we then introduce things like that, teachers, they're used to it. They're used to it. They celebrate that failure. We also have a full-time forest school teacher. So we have, we call it's like our outdoor makerspace, really, because we have a farm where they build constructions with bamboo. And so the students wanted to build an igloo, and they said, well, Thailand's too hot, so let's build it out of bamboo. Well, we'll call it an igloo. And so they build it, and they use real tools, and they have to measure everything. And so we already have that sort of that mindset of making things. We have a mud pit, and if students feel like jumping in, by all means, change into your farm outfit and jump into the mud. Enjoy it.
Nice.
It's so bringing maker movement into a classroom was, I'd like to say, fairly easy. Of course, it does come with its. I mean, you always have students that would just make every day, all day, and just forget about all the rest. So that choice is amazing. However, you do have to guide them. It's all about us teachers being mentors and more guiding them into making the right choices and solutions, rather than telling them, now you have to do this. No, but okay, you're working on that, I see you're doing that. Let's bring the learning into what you're doing.
Gotcha.
So you're designing something. Let's say I want to work on these objectives for English. Well, how can I bring those objectives into what you are doing at this moment? And not destroy your creativity.
Right. Cool. So Ralph, it looks like you brought something to show us.
Yeah, that is a breadboard. I don't know if our viewers have seen it before. It's a bit convoluted now, and an Arduino, but it's the local Thai-made thing. And I am really not a professional. This is just from how to build it, or I forgot the site's name now. And it's a little synthesizer, and it doesn't work right now. But it is pretty amazing that there are so many lessons completely built already for you. And I agree, it is a bit daring if you haven't tried it yourself first. But I think Seti would agree that if you plan a lesson correctly and you have the scope, you have all the material, then you can throw an activity at your kids without knowing the outcome at first, and you will be amazed how much fun and learning is going on.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, that's often, at times we'll sit in a staff meeting or something, and people are working on medium-term plans and long-term plans, and then they're sort of looking, so what are you doing in 4 weeks? And the answer is, I don't know. I know my overarching topic. Like at the moment, there are groups, and I'm working on robotics with that group. Now, if you ask me exactly what we are doing next week, well, it depends on what they do this week, because for all I know, in my head, it'll take them 3 weeks to get there, but in reality, one lesson in and they've done it. Well, then I'll tweak it. I'll go home. I'll plan the next lesson. But that same 3-week journey could take them the entire term. And it's finding that balance between sort of keeping the pace, fast enough to interest them, and also, I think, just realizing that as a teacher, you're a facilitator, and if you have to be, you have to plan your lessons. You have to know where you're going. You can't just go in and just improvise, but be willing to throw out 80% of your planning. And I think that's key. So if you're serious about starting a makerspace or a maker corner or a maker movement with your teachers, and you plan for it, but be willing to just throw it all out and go with the children's interests. Because if you're not willing to do that, then you are in the wrong place. You should not be in the makerspace.
Yeah. So I posted this question that Adriana asked, and it's a little late because you already kind of addressed it to some extent, Sethi. But the whole thing about a maker movement, makerspace movement, I mean, that's bigger than just, you know, like one objective. Were you there when the makerspace was brought into your school? Like, and Neal, I'm a little confused. Did you say you have a makerspace already, or you have something in your future, or what's the situation at your school?
Well, we have a big space. We have a central food hub, a workshop, computer rooms, but we're bringing. I'm personally bringing it all together.
Okay.
And I hope my boss never watches this.
Yeah.
But yeah, sort of like saying, I want all this, and this is what I want, and we need this as a school to grow, because I want other teachers, and it goes along with Adriana's vision of bringing people in to my space. In previous schools, if I've asked teachers to come in, use my classroom, because I don't have a teacher desk. In a work, it's pointless in a design room. You need to be moving around. You need to be in the middle of everything that's going on. And I usually find that teachers aren't that way inclined really struggle with the fact that there is no desk to hide behind.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. And I would have to.
I love that, because I do have a desk, but I refuse to have a chair next to my desk, and the desk is up against the wall, and it's used to hold up the computer, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that. Yeah. No,
Sethi, don't you have in your room? Don't you have like bar height desks? Because that is what I wish in our space, where we would like benches where we would have like
possible. The only we have in total 4 chairs. That's all we have in the room, and that is to accommodate for those students with needs that just need to sit. Any of the other students, unless there is actually a physical need, they are not sitting, they're moving around. And also they will choose to move around because it makes sense. It's a space where you move. We have beanbags. There's beanbags if they need to take a minute and just, gather their thoughts and work on their plans and maybe brainstorm, because it's all about community, like what you said, Ralph. We want to build community, and they have to build little tribes while they're working on their projects. And so we've got beanbags. Grab a couple of beanbags, bring them together, have a brainstorm, and then back to your project. So that, yes, absolutely. To answer your question, Eric, we did not have a makerspace. And I asked for about 3 years.
Yeah.
So, and after 3 years, I'll never forget this. After 3 years, there was we were in the staff room, and next door there was a room, and it was a tiny little space. And I was like, well, that's not being used, and it hasn't been used all year. So we went to management. It was like, could we please have that room to turn it into a small little makerspace? But like I said, we already had that. We've had the farm for years, and so the mindset was already there.
Yeah.
And so the school was already at that point of, we do things differently. We are happy to do that. And so when I asked for that room, I'll never forget, she looked at me, she smiled, said, well, we've got a bigger space for you. Don't you worry.
Okay.
And so then a month later, I was given this big classroom that used to be the year 6 classroom.
Yeah.
And she literally said, do what you want. You've got a month to get it ready, but it's yours. You want to paint the walls, paint the walls. You want to move furniture around, move furniture around. If you need anything, write it on a list and we'll see what we can do. And so that's been amazing to actually first of all, to not have to walk into a room and make it yours, but to actually have a blank slate and just say, okay, let's look at this space and let's see what we can do with it. And let's just maximize the value it brings.
Well, so Davis's point here is interesting. I was wondering, like, how central is that room where you got placed, and also the same for you, Neal. Like, because when we're trying to get students to do things that are optional, I really find that going to where the students are is very important. And Davis is talking about teachers as well, but yeah, how central are your maker spaces, and what effect do you think that has on attendance participation?
Mine's above the entrance, but our school is small enough to not necessarily. I mean, it's not a factor because our school is small enough, and all the buildings are centered around a big garden. So everyone is at the same distance from all the other classrooms.
Gotcha.
So
Nothing's remote.
Yeah, nothing's remote. I am, though, if you do look at it in terms of buildings, I am in the upper school building, so I'm in the secondary building. The middle school building is about 3-minute walk, and then early years they don't come to my space, but I go into their space because that's a safety thing, because we've got certain tools that we'd like to have a controlled environment. So we still bring those tools to them, and they use real drills and real saws and they use everything, but not all at the same time in the makerspace.
At what age?
So it's a more controlled environment. So we bring drills into early years. They use them, and they've been using them for years when they're doing these bamboo constructions, and so they have those skills. But I don't want to see 23-year-olds with knives and box cutters, and that's not happening.
I thought you said 23-year-olds. Like, I think 23 is old enough. I think that's probably fine. Yeah, yeah, gotcha. So
Gary, 23-year-olds.
Yeah, right. Gary, has your school thought much about makerspaces? Is there much talk of that?
Well, they are asking me to start one. That is why I love the topic. That's why I'm very quiet. I'm just absorbing everything.
Gotcha.
And Neal and Seti has been a good guest. So basically, I have a question. What are the things that we have? For example, I would like to start one. What should I be careful of? So I have my impression basically is makerspace is basically letting them move, letting them feel, because with technology we're not really developing them with the basic skills like the senses, like using mechanics, using these tools that we have manual tools. So makerspace, what from the conversation, it's basically doing the old ways, but supervising them and letting them learn something, well, not something new, but the concepts that we would like to teach them in the classroom and how it is being applied in daily life. Basically, that's what I am getting here. So how do we start one? That's my question. How do you start? How do we, school can start one if they want to have this kind of setup? Anyone can answer.
For me, in my school, I mean, I only started here this academic year, so it's quite new. I'm quite new at my school. But what I've been looking at is what the other departments are actually doing. So what are their plans? What are the things they're actually teaching? What are they delivering? And what are the possibilities they might actually want? So I've brought in the basic tools that I've got at the minute. I've designed a unit that my students are actually redesigning my rooms now.
Wow.
So those designs, they're going to present to our board, and hopefully they'll tick off on those, and then our design space will get bigger and better. But it's basic stuff at the minute. I mean, I've got one 3D printer, I've got a couple of fret saws, basic hand tools, and just using whatever I can get my hands on. So I'm not going out and spending a fortune on nice woods and really expensive saws. It's just the basics. As it grows and the projects get bigger, and the art department and the theatre department decide they want to get in on it, then I'll go that way, and I'll grow, and I'll get bigger tools and maybe a bigger workshop and branch out even more. And I know Adriana is looking at using the makerspace in relation to the library and the Learning Resource Centre. So she can branch out, because I know she's going to be looking at things like green screen and things like that. So it's, you know, what I can use to enhance all the other subjects as well. So really, I'm trying to make most subjects reliant on my department.
Yeah.
So when they start designing units, they're thinking, oh, we could go down to the makerspace or the design rooms and we could do this. You know, we could put a food unit into our history class and go down and cook. And that's really what I'm after.
Cool.
So basically, it's integrating what the lesson. So it's not just you alone, but you're integrating whatever.
Gary, say in between the dogs barking, I would say start with things that you're interested in, and then you're more enthusiastic when pitching it to other teachers because you feel confident about what you've got in there at the moment. So you start with what you enjoy and you like, and then you sort of say to the teachers, come and see all this. This is really great. And then if they come up with ideas, you're like, yeah, that's great. Get it in. Even if you don't agree sometimes, because you want them to be enthusiastic about the space. Yeah, I mean, in the school that I've got now, they're bringing in MakeSpace. They've got someone who's really enthusiastic about it, but he's all about drills and machinery and things like that. He loves that, but he's now paired up with the DT teacher who loves sewing. So she's brought together all her sewing machines and stuff because that's not his thing, as he said, but he found someone who she really likes it. So bit by bit, people are coming into the space and then saying, oh, could we put like, you know, cardboard stuff in here, and they can be building stuff with that. And they're like, yes, get some cardboard in here. What a good idea. So it's little bits and pieces that they're doing. Yeah. But start with something that you love. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
I'm curious, Adriana. So you're talking about the makerspace in your school now, true?
So we don't have a makerspace, but we have so my role as technology coach is going to merge with the makerspace teacher. They're going to combine the both of them, the best of both worlds. Not my role, but somebody else's. So he's already starting to look ahead to makerspace for August. Yeah. So he's visiting loads of other schools, connecting with other people. But just doing bits and pieces in the lunch hour at the moment. So it's not a dedicated subject. It's just a lunch hour thing that kids are sort of like, what's going on this floor? Oh, okay. Well, I might come in and play with a few bits and pieces. So it's like a soft sell almost. Okay. Yeah.
And so what will your role be when that comes together?
So they're going to combine the technology coach role with the makerspace. That's how they envisage it. They're going to put them both together. What it looks like will be very exciting and interesting.
Yeah. I was just confused because there's somebody else who's like putting effort into it. So I wasn't sure what combining would look like. Is it going to be two people or one person? Or?
No, it'll look like, it'll just be one person, but not me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So they're basically got a technology coach at the moment, and then next year they'll merge that with the makerspace movement. Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see because it should dovetail. It should, fit nicely together. But it's just making sure that as a technology coach, you're still able to support everybody else in the school. Yeah. So it'll be interesting for them.
Well, so I'm curious. Go ahead. Yeah.
If I'm very honest, I'm in the exact same situation. So I'm combining the tech integration with MakerSpace. And I don't know who's watching, but if I'm very honest, most of my time now and most of my effort and enthusiasm, and it's all going to MakerSpace. I'm incredibly passionate about tech integration and that sort of. However, I do have to admit that MakerSpace is number one. And so I try to, obviously, I look for gaps as well. I try to look for gaps in the curriculum and things that could be done slightly better. And then I try to find a way of bringing that also into the MakerSpace because I do have a dedicated slot. I have an hour with them every week. The way we've done that is literally by myself, MakerSpace, sitting down with the art and DT teacher. And we just negotiated with each other. And we just went, right, we've got a unit and we've got to cover it. I'll cover that. Don't worry about that. And then she was like, well, I really want to do food technology. It's yours. Take it. You can have it.
Yeah.
And then, so I think that's that open discussion that Adriana was just saying, where he said, that's not my thing. I don't think I'll ever say it's not my thing, because I think in a makerspace, I actually quite like the fact that I'm out of my depth. And I think that's what I love about it, is because your students know. They know when you are telling them something that is not true. They know when you're not confident in doing something. Just be open about it. Be honest about it. And just say, look, I don't know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're doing. You ask me the question, I'll go home and I'll find you an answer.
Yeah.
That's
then
my
you're modeling
role.
learning.
My role
modeling,
is to
So everyone is a learner.
I will help you along the way, but guarantee that you will ask me questions I do not know the answer to. But you have to work with the other departments. Another example is electronics and electricity. I do all the practical stuff, but guess who teaches all the theory and Ohm's law and talks about amps and volts? And that's our science guy. That's our science teacher. That's his science lesson. I'm not going to walk in and tell him how to teach his science lesson. That's him. He knows what he's doing, and he's an expert at it. He knows exactly what he's doing. I am not touching his lesson. What I'm doing is I'm taking what he teaches, I bring it into my space, and we create things. We build things. I give them soldering irons, and I give them LEDs, and I let them blow up light bulbs. And well, why did that happen? Maybe you didn't pay attention in your science lesson. You shouldn't have put 24 volts through that bulb.
I need to cut you short because
I know
we have to welcome Davis.
Ralph, you actually know our science guy, and
Yes,
you know how passionate
Davis is
Ralph
here.
knows how passionate he is about science. So I'm not touching his subject, but I try to make it practical.
So can we do a wave for Davis, please?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I'd love to hear, because I don't know what the situation is with Davis.
I am
welcome, Davis.
I say we give him the floor for 10 minutes. We've been waiting for weeks to get him on. Like, this has been weeks.
Okay,
Davis,
please tell us how you are.
You're downplaying it a little bit. It should be months.
Bye, Sethi. Oh no. Yeah. So Davis, what's the scoop with you in Makerspaces?
So currently we're actually planning to start up a makerspace for next school year. And we are now at the currently we're in the planning phase. We're thinking about what objectives we want for that particular makerspace. We don't have a big room to start with, but the idea is to plan for growth. So I think when you're thinking about starting up a makerspace, I think, and if you really want to make it successful, I think you also need to include what is your plan for sustainability and what is your plan for growth. So and that's one of those are some of the things that we're going to be talking tomorrow with our curriculum coordinator or director, with our innovation coach, and with our ICT lead tomorrow. So pray for me. So as we discussed that, and so yeah, we're in that stage where we're planning, and when we've asked a few teachers, because they're not really familiar with makerspaces. They've heard of it, but they've not really thought about the mindset of making or creating. They have projects, they do projects in their classrooms, but they don't really understand why they have to go to a different location to make those things. And because there's not really kind of a direction of if it's going to be somebody who's leading that makerspace, or if it's going to be just teachers coming over and doing their projects in there. There's not really that particular direction yet. And that's one of the things that we would be figuring out tomorrow as we figure out what objectives we want to meet when designing that.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Tiff. No.
I think it's a great idea to have a space where teachers can go to. However, that being said, I think having a dedicated person in your makerspace could be the thing that makes it successful, because then that person can select those tools and those activities and those challenges and those materials that go into the classroom. Whereas if you do not have a person in just a space and everyone goes to the space, guaranteed, well, who's going to be in charge of the resources? When are resources used? When are resources going to be checked out? Who makes sure that there is enough of every resource for every unit? Who follows up on how many batteries have been used? Who makes sure that the LEDs are ordered? Who follows up on the robotics? What about, everyone wanting to do robotics at the same time? Well, then you have to break down your robots every single time. What about storage of projects? So I think it's either a makerspace with someone in charge of it, or it is no space and you bring maker movement into every classroom, which is going to probably be resource-wise a lot more expensive, because a centralized place, when you're just starting, it's probably cheaper to buy 5 canary cutters than buying 5 for every classroom. So I think yeah, but that's my opinion, and I'd love to hear everyone else's opinion about that.
Well, one thing I'm curious about right now, because we haven't really gotten into it. I mentioned design thinking at the very beginning, and you talked about you say DT like like I wouldn't have known before this topic. What's he talking about? And you even talk about having a DT teacher. That's just that there's somebody that's their subject. This is all very interesting to me. Like, can you, for the people who are as ignorant as I have been, can you give me an overview of what this design thinking is? It seems to be a process. Who can introduce us to it? Got something, Neal?
Everybody goes quiet on that one.
Yeah.
I nominate Neal.
I think it's different in everybody's eyes. It depends on where you're coming from. Like, as a design teacher, I know teachers that are engineers who have become design teachers, teachers that are mathematicians that have become design teachers. So you have to look at the background of the person taking it over. And as Adriana said, about the interests of those people as well, when it comes to design and thinking, and how those people think, and how you instill thinking in young people to get them interested in your subject. Yeah. There was talking of they've got sewing machines coming in because it's not their thing. So I went and bought sewing machines for my space to show the students, yes, there can be anything here. Yeah. And it's how they think. I do it very inquiry based. The student can say to me, can I cut this piece of wood? My response is usually, I don't know, can you? So in design, it's getting them to think, which relates to the makerspace. They're in another subject and somebody says, well, can we make a house? Well, yes, I can. I've been told I can make a house, so I'm going to go and make one.
Yeah.
And it just takes time to get that outside the box thinking back into young people's brains. I think by the time they get to grade 6 and then they hit 7, we've almost drained it out of them.
Yeah.
They're being told, this is what you have to do. You're not allowed to think, do this, read this book, copy this book, answer these questions.
And this is the way to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas we're design teachers, we're looking at makerspaces, we're trying to open that world of thinking again to get them to be individuals and to think for themselves.
Well, when I was looking it up earlier, I found some, set of. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, that's the design cycle. That.
Right, and so is this what it's from the Interaction Design Foundation? Is this like officially what one might think?
Well,
or is this
there's different interpretations, but it does come down to that. myself, my background, I come from, so my formal training was in early childhood development and special educational needs. So I look at it as those very young students, they have that, it's just an innate ability to explore the world around them.
Yeah.
They explore. You observe a 5-year-old in the garden. What do? They pick up a worm, they drop it down, they look at how it wiggles, then they see it going into the ground, they pull it out because they want to see what happens.
Yeah.
And they do that with everything. They pick up a rock, guess what they do? They drop it.
They eat it.
Smash cars together to see what happens. And I think design thinking and the design cycle, that's almost saying, okay, you're now older, try to go back to that and explore what's really going on.
Yeah.
Look at things from a different perspective. Now, I am saying that's my formal training, but I've always had, I mean, before that, I did web development. So computer science has always been in there. So that problem solving attitude is another thing that I've always been. I mean, people say, oh, it doesn't work, and they get frustrated. Whereas when something doesn't work, I say, well, it doesn't work. I wonder why. It's like you get excited. It's like, this didn't work. I thought it was going to work.
Totally. Yeah.
So I have this conversation in my office all the time where people say, this doesn't work. And the minute I hear it, it's like, well, and I slide over and go, well, why not? Move out of the way. Let me see why it doesn't work. And then we can probably get it working. It may take a day, but just get out of my way and let me get on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. It's like sometimes people will come to you, and again, this is probably something Adriana's experienced as a tech coach as well. They'll come to you and they'll ask you a question and say, yeah, but you know how to do this. No, I am as clueless as you are right now. The difference is you've come to me because I enjoy trying to figure out what went wrong. That's the only difference between you and me is I know how to Google. I know how to like, I'm not going to give up. I'm excited about not knowing the answer. It didn't work. So you came to me because you can't be bothered. You can't be bothered trying to problem solve it.
Well, they didn't even do it in the first instance.
Exactly. And so that's design thinking. Design thinking is, and if you pull back up that graphic, that's what we're talking about in those first two cycles. Because I'd like to, I mean, so that's a really good one. That's a really good. So you've got empathize and define. So you're really going to, first of all, you try to figure out.
I really like empathize. I'm just saying that's really cool.
So what's really going on? Like, I mean, are you really on the, like, for example, someone's come to you with a problem, something didn't work. Okay, well, is this person just someone who really dislikes iPads? Like, because that could be part of the reason. They just can't be bothered touching that iPad. Then define, okay, so what's really going on here? Is it a software problem? Is it a hardware problem? Is it a, maybe that's the issue. And then you move into sort of ideating. Okay, so let's have a think about how we might solve it. Okay, we could organize some professional development. We could do some training with our staff. Maybe not as successful. Another ideate. Okay, maybe we could take that person and just do some one-on-one coaching. Maybe we could show them some examples of how we can use this in class. And then you move on to prototyping. So I believe that design thinking and design cycle applies to everything. You can use this in the makerspace, but you can use it in your teaching. You can use it in how you deliver content. You can use it in how you train teachers. You can use it in everyday life. It applies to everything, and it shouldn't just be the makerspace.
Right. I was just
Ralph.
I wanted to quickly say something. Funny enough, I removed Davis to praise him because I am sometimes we kind of want to see how he reacts here, isn't it? So, but Davis, you're back in a second.
Smiling.
Because he taught me to. I'm still sometimes, as a 40-year-old man, I'm still that kid who, if there's a problem, if a student has a problem, I'm so happy to help and do it for the students. And dear Davis, I am so sorry, but I still do it sometimes. But if I do it, I think of you and I think, be quiet now.
Yeah.
You are here to support the student. You are here to support the co-teacher, but don't do it for him. Davis, thank you very much.
Cool. Now let me see. I was wondering, because of that thing about empathy, how often do students in your schools focus on solving problems for other people? Because like in my case, when I was working on an app, then the empathy part was totally handled. I was the user, and so that was very easy. But the idea of empathy implies that you have to get into someone else's thoughts, somebody else's perspective. So how often, and that's something that we as adults will often do. How often do you find that students are solving problems for situations that aren't problems for them?
I love that you bring that up, because I literally this morning on Twitter, again, if anyone's watching this and you're not on Twitter, you need to get on Twitter. Like, start growing your network. It's an amazing resource. I know some people say Twitter is a cesspool, but for me, it depends on who you follow, and it takes time to develop. And it's such a great resource. Right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm going off on a. Oh, so let's go back to my original. So to answer your question, what I read this morning on Twitter, and I think that really aligns with your question. I can't remember who posted it. I think it was Brad, or anyways. And it was saying, don't be the leader you want to be led by, and don't be the teacher you wanted as a student, but to be the teacher your students need right now. And I think that applies to design as well. So you said that your solution, the empathy was handled because you were the end user.
Right.
But in many cases, we need to get our students from their point of view, and I want to solve this problem for me, to what's the actual problem? Like, there's 20 of us. One of you, I'm just going to make a simple example. Let's say that there's a group of 20, and one of you thinks that the color red is a problem. So we change it and we paint it blue. Problem solved. Yes, but then when you do a survey, it turns out that actually more than half of the class really liked that color. Did you really solve the problem? No, you didn't. You just made it worse.
Yeah.
So the empathy bit is really understanding, first of all, is this a problem, or is this just me?
Yeah.
Because it could just be you. Maybe you're just stubborn.
It's true.
That's one. Number two is, what is the real problem? Get to the core of that. And that's where you sort of have that overlap with like empathy and define. And so, for example, if you're trying to deliver professional development, that was the one. There you go. Nice. Admins, don't be the leader you needed as a teacher, but be the leader your staff needs now. Teachers, don't be the teacher you needed as a student, be the teacher your students need now. And I think that is key, because we need to look at the grand scheme of things. And problems are often very different than what we think they are. So like so many teachers say, oh yeah, this student was misbehaving. Well, actually he's communicating. That what you call misbehavior is communication.
Yeah.
So what is the real problem? Well, maybe the real problem is that he's hungry because he didn't have breakfast. So that could be the real problem.
And sometimes it's almost like a question of, instead of what's the problem, is there a problem? Maybe it's sometimes just a misunderstanding.
Does this really need to be fixed, or is it fine?
Yeah.
Like, you see, one of the topics I'm doing now with my students, one of the parts of the statement is, working on a problem for less fortunate people. And then one of the students actually said to me, what do you mean by less fortunate? I went, well, it's not what I mean by less fortunate. It's how you interpret less fortunate yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the students said, oh, that'd be somebody that doesn't have a smartphone.
Well, interesting. Yeah.
And then somebody said, no. That's like, Adriana might like this. My daughter actually said, less fortunate. My daughter said, that's someone that doesn't have cats.
Yeah.
And so
that's so true.
That's empathize. That's what that is all about. And it's, I'd say to anyone who's serious about trying out the design cycle, don't rush it. Don't rush it. Take your time and introduce these different, steps, because there's research behind this. Like, this has been proven. This works. Yes, it's a bit awkward the first time you do it or the first time you go through it, but like my students, they're used to that now, and they know the type of questions I'm going to ask them. I mean, go back to what we said 20 minutes ago. When someone comes in and say, "Can I borrow some cardboard?" Many teachers would say, "Here you go."
Yeah.
Whereas for me, can I borrow some cardboard? Right. How much time have we got? 5 minutes or 10 minutes? When do you need to get back to your class? But that one question leads to, okay, oh yeah, sure, but what are you going to use it for?
But what I would say,
what thickness? Why cardboard?
Can I say though that if you're thinking makerspace and design thinking, like for you, Davis, the wider conversation is: are you going to introduce it across the board? Because if you've got students in your class doing design thinking and doing it really well, and they love the process, why shouldn't it spill over into other lessons? That means getting other teachers on board with it. So you almost have to say, and this comes from management, I feel, that they decide, right, we're going to put design thinking through the school as a valid means of teaching and learning, and start with the teachers, that you are saying, okay, let's do a design thinking project together. And it's horrible. I don't like it. When we did that with the Google Camp, it was really painful, but it was really rewarding once we got through the process and you could see the value of it. But as a teacher, it was a change of mindset, and it was this makes sense, but it's hard work. And I had to really change the way I think. And if you're like a lone teacher in a school just using design thinking, are we really doing the best by our students? Why are you teaching them the skill, this style of learning, but it's not being used to its great potential in other lessons?
Yeah, it's a mixed
You're not doing right by the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion, Adriana, and just want to share about my experience as well. So my background, I'm coming from the the background of teaching government school here in Thailand, and right now I'm in a bilingual school in Thailand as well. Sorry about that. So and the mindset and the tradition and the culture is not aligned with design thinking at all. Many teachers here, especially with the government school and a lot of the bilingual schools as well, private schools, they're more kind of like they're when they have like project or they have things that they want to work on, they want to create it and be done with it. They just go through it and not do any kind of like empathize. They don't plan. They plan during the time when they're making it, but they don't plan to.
But then they are not in love with their project.
Yeah. So bringing design thinking into our school. Sorry about that.
Look how much you are in love with your project and how empathetic and patient you are there with your little one. That's very inspiring, Dave.
So bringing that design thinking is going to be a big change for our school and our teachers as well.
Oh, looky there. Okay. So this is going really well, but we've gone 5 minutes over, and I guess we can probably wrap up now. Leave a morning more. But yeah, this has been really great. It's great that you were able to show up, Davis and Neal. It's so nice to meet you. We were lucky to have you. We were a little low on expertise at the beginning, so it's just 2 out of 6 at the beginning. So that was really, really good to have you in there too. And it'd be great to have both of you back. Yeah, anytime. Yeah. So, well, this has been great. Signing off for another.
Let me quickly say goodbye and then get Seti in to say goodbye as well, Eric. It was great to have more than 7 constant who want to speak, and I think we did quite well. So very cool. Goodbye, everybody. And now Seti is coming.
Later, Ralph. Thanks, Sethi. It's great to have you.
Thank you, everyone. And Neal, we want you back. You're more than welcome. Honestly, come back.
Thank you.
I feel
Thank you for
like
coming.
we could even do this topic again sometime.
Yeah.
You know, more about makerspaces and/or design thinking.
Well,
Yeah,
it
it
is a
worked out really well.
cycle. It does continuously change.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a
And it
lot.
should.
And
And it should.
since a few of us are moving in that direction, then I think it it bears exploring, and we would certainly value it. And I bet a lot of other schools are moving this direction too. So let's think about that. Okay, so thanks again very much, Thursday PD. Signing off. Ending.
Cheers.